Let's get the views of investigative journalist Tony Gosling on the Putin mystery. Tony, thanks for coming on to speak to us. Everybody's been talking about this in one way or another. Why did the rumours about President Putin's public absence cause quite so much speculation?
Well, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, we often in Britain have no public appearances from the royal family, for example, the senior members of the royal family for several weeks with no comment at all. But the reason there was comment about Putin is because he cancelled several engagements. But I've got my own theory about why that is, because although it's been hardly reported here in the Western press, there's been enormous movements of US military hardware into the Baltic states, which is right on the Russian border, and also exercises, that kind of thing going on. This is the sort of thing which, to me, does indicate that there may be a realignment, a big realignment, in the military posture from Russia. And so it may simply be that Vladimir Putin's been busy with this, as well, of course, as the murder of Boris Nemtsov, which, is going to also almost definitely mean a big bolstering of the internal security in Russia. So it might just simply be that he's got very important jobs to do at home in order to deal with some of the West's provocation, particularly this business of moving all these tanks into the Baltic states like Latvia and Estonia. So that's why. Also, I think here in Britain, it would be nice to see our own Prime Minister, David Cameron, actually doing something for the nation, where we've got, a million people on food banks, this kind of thing. He doesn't seem to really care about that. I actually think Cameron's a bit of a busted flush. He doesn't really seem to be caring about the country, and he's chickened out of doing a TV debate with Ed Miliband, of course. And also, he's making pronouncements about TV presenters. He's not dealing with the real issues in Britain. So I think what we need to do is compare Putin's attitude to running Russia to Cameron's attitude to running Britain. And I'm afraid Cameron doesn't come off very well.
Just to try and put this in context, I'm sure there are many people who are quite bemused by all the attention his absence got. It was just a few appointments, barely a week out of the public eye. A lot of people might think, why all the fuss? Do you think it had anything to do with this was the leader of Russia? Would the leader of another country have had so much attention?
Well, look, imagine what would have happened if Russian tanks were arriving in Scotland, for example. David Cameron, I think, would have been rather busier, So this is the sort of thing which doesn't get covered as a potential reason for this sort of thing in the press. Also, there's massive issues on the plate for the Russian government at the moment. How to counter ISIS, which is this monstrous magnet using a twisted version of the Quran to bring everybody who's a fanatic together in the Middle East, actually really serving just to balkanize the whole of the region, rather like it seems many were hoping was going to happen in Ukraine, with loads of infighting going on permanently. It's good to see we've got at least a relative kind of, not a total ceasefire, but calming down of that sort of situation. Also, big overtures that the Russians are having from Greece, possibly having to relaunch the drachma with the support from Russia, launching a new international development bank to compete with the International Monetary Fund. Well, listen, Russia's got a lot on its plate, Putin's got a lot on its plate. Also, of course, we've got actually a criminal elite, I believe, here in the West, who actually want war. That's why all these tanks have been going into the Baltic states. First of all, you've got the arms firms, the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us of in 1961, making a lot of money out of war. And also, we've got a total economic disaster, and not a bailout coming, but a crash coming, I believe. And the Western elite are looking to blame Russia for that. So, and if the Western media propaganda is anything to go by, they actually might get away with blaming Russia when that crash finally comes.
OK, we're listening to the thoughts of investigative journalist Tony Gosling. Tony, thanks for coming on RT.
Thanks, Neil.